Hey folks, welcome back. I'm Dr. Lon Schiffbauer, and today we're talking about effective listening. It's absolutely imperative in today's workforce to be a good, strong, effective listener. So let's talk about that. But now, before we can talk about what effective listening is, we need to first understand, why is it difficult in the first place? I mean, how hard can it be to just listen? Well, it turns out it can be a Herculean task at times. Let me explain why. First of all, there's a lot of noise in the environment when we are in a discussion, when we are communicating. Now, noise comes in many, many forms. First of all, there's actual physical noise, right? Noise in the environment. You got fans, you've got trucks, you've got people talking in the hallway, you have noise going on all over the place. Okay, so perhaps right now you might have somebody in a kitchen cooking while you're watching this video, or there might be people walking by as you're on your phone watching the video. So this constitutes actual physical noise that gets in the way. The next one is psychological noise. These are distractions caused by the receiver's internal thoughts, such as worrying about bigger problems, right? Right now, you're watching this video. However, you've got bigger problems than whatever it is that's causing you to watch this video. You've got deadlines, you've got relationship issues, you've got all kinds of things going on that frankly are vying for your attention much more than this video. Therefore, you are not able to fully listen because your mind is in other places, quite often places where it should be. All right, next kind of noise is physiological noise, right? This is things like you're hungry. Maybe you're hungry right now, and so that's kind of distracting, or you're sitting down in a hallway somewhere before a class, and so you're all huddled up with the phone. That's physically uncomfortable, right? So anytime that you are experiencing physiological distractions, it's too hot, it's too cold, I'm uncomfortable, I'm hungry, I have a headache, these are getting in the way of good listening. Then you have semantic noise, right? Confusion brought on by the sender's word choices and how the receiver perceives or defines these words. So I'm using all kinds of language and so forth as I'm communicating, and maybe some term I used somewhere, maybe you didn't understand the term, maybe I misused it and my grammar was poor, and therefore you're starting to doubt my credibility. Maybe I used a term that you found somewhat offensive, and now you're fixating on that, right? So this is considered semantic noise, where the words that the sender uses, c'est moi maintenant, is getting in the way of you understanding or receiving or internalizing what I'm saying. By the way, that was French, which is a great example of semantic noise, wasn't intended. Okay. Then another reason why listening is difficult is, folks, come on, we have a limited attention span, right? Attention is a finite resource, and holy smoke, everybody wants our attention. Everyone wants our attention, and it gets to be nigh unto obnoxious, right? So social media wants our attention, family, friends, professors, bosses, co-workers, advertising, you name it, everything wants our attention. And so with limited attention to give, you're watching this video and perhaps multitasking on something that's really important, which means you're only able to give me a modicum of your attention. Okay. Next one, receiver bias. Preconceived ideas and attitudes the receiver has toward the sender. Okay, so maybe you're looking at me going, who the hell's this guy, right? Okay, he introduced himself as Dr. Schiffbauer. Well, now, why do I introduce myself as Dr. Schiffbauer? I'll tell you what, I really struggle with this one. Because on one hand, I don't care. Okay, yes, I have a PhD, big whoop, right? I I'm not into flexing like that. Nevertheless, I want to communicate that I have some experience. I have a PhD in psychology, so I have an understanding of the psychological mechanisms at play when it comes to good communication because I'm also a professional communicator. But you know what? I didn't say all that, and maybe you care, maybe you don't care. You see what I mean? It may play into or play against your biases toward me. All right. You might also say, hey, man, dude, is that a Batman back there? What kind of moron would have a Batman in the background if he wants to be taken seriously? All right. So that is receiver bias. Now, there's also pre existing opinions about the topic itself, listening. So I don't need to listen because I already know what I think, right? So maybe you're listening to this and you're like, I already have my opinions about listening. I don't need this information. Or when you're listening to somebody else as they're droning on about this, that, or the other, you're like, I already have my opinions. I don't need to hear this. You have a preconceived, pre existing bias when it comes to the topic at hand, right? Often listening is to refute rather than to listen to understand, waiting to talk rather than listening, right? So maybe somebody said something and you're already thinking of your response. You're already thinking of how you're going to agree or disagree or bring it back to you, waiting to talk versus listening, right? That gets in the way of really good listening. Okay. Also, receiver apprehension. Let's see, apprehension that you may have difficulty understanding what the sender wants to communicate. Maybe you're thinking it's too complex or technical for your level of understanding. So, yeah, all right. When I go into meetings and so forth, I go into meetings, folks, with a lot of really smart people. And they're talking smart stuff in domains about which I know very little, right? Topics about which I know very little. And I get nervous because I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up with this conversation. So I really get this one, right? That's receiver apprehension. Also, apprehension about how they tend to communicate, right? So I'll tell you what, long winded and prone to getting lost in tangents. And maybe I'm doing that right now. So if I go into a meeting with somebody that I know they talk ad nauseum, they go on and on and on. I walk into that meeting already with my brain turned off because I don't want to have to listen to this. So that's another form of receiver apprehension. Okay. So yeah, listening is hard. Don't get down on yourself if you have a hard time following somebody for whatever reason, and don't let anybody shame you because you're not listening. It's freaking hard. But that doesn't mean that there are not things out there that we can do to increase our listening skills. So let's look at 5 tips and tricks that you can use to increase your listening effectiveness. All right. First of all, go into whatever situation you're going with questions in mind. So if you're going into a meeting or something or going into an interview, before that meeting, before the interview, formulate several questions in mind that you want to get out of that meeting, right? We listen better when the information matters to us. It's not selfishness, it's self-preservation. So if I'm going into a meeting about professional development, I'm in there thinking, okay, I need 3 tips that I can apply to my classroom. I am listening for 3 tips that I can use. And so that forces me, that encourages me to listen more closely for these few nuggets that are more than likely out there. Let's face it, oftentimes listening is a matter of sifting through a whole lot of mud to find those few nuggets of gold. So go in with some questions in mind. It helps a lot to train our attention. As it says here, by taking time to come up with 3 or so questions before the conversation, we turn on our radar and listen for these things that matter. By extension, we listen better to everything as a whole. So that one works. Okay, number 2. Remove distractions, right? Contrary to the predominant myth that multitasking allows us to increase our productivity, it does not. Multitasking is a myth. I know I want it to be as real as you do because I am an absolute productivity fiend, but it doesn't work. So you want to get rid of those distractions. Leave your phone in another room. At the very least, turn off the sound and put it upside down. Can I webcam right here? All right. There. I don't know if you can still hear me. Yeah, you can hear me. There's my phone. Okay. Now, I don't have it in another room because I'm actually waiting for an alarm to tell me to go plug in something for dinner. You didn't want to know that. You don't care. But the point is, we want to remove our distractions because they're going to get in the way of good listening. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Effective listening means closing the laptop, putting away the smartphone, and giving the speaker your full, undivided attention, free of distractions. Number 3, be aware of your body language. I know, right? You're kind of like, hold on, we're talking about listening and you're talking about body language. Oh, no. There's a connection, right? Research suggests that simply assuming the position of an attentive listener increases your ability to gather and retain information. Yeah, if we just assume the body language of somebody who's paying attention, it's weird, I know, but you will end up paying more attention. So just be aware of that. Your attentive body posture and also encourages the speaker, making him or her more likely to open up, share, and respond to your questions and input, making you part of a collaborative discussion. Yeah, so I'll tell you what. I mean, I was on the wrong screen. I love my students. I adore my students. But if I see a student just like that, it's hard for me to say, oh man, I want to give you everything I have. Let's explore, let's delve, let's really get into this, right? But if I have my students really looking at me and taking notes and nodding and so forth, oh my gosh, I would give them the shirt off my back, right? Except you don't want to see my body without a shirt. You see what I'm saying though, right? So that sort of thing really matters. All right, number 4, reflect back what you hear. This one personally is my favorite. Don't assume that just because you understand the speaker, you therefore understand what he or she is trying to say, right? Just because you understand the words doesn't mean you understand the meaning, the intent of those words. So respond back, reply back, reflect back what I think I'm hearing you say, right? So say something like, so what I'm hearing you say is, and then summarize the key points you understood them to be. This gives the speaker the opportunity to validate or amend what you are gathering from the conversation. So if what I'm hearing you say is correct, you're saying that I should just basically repeat back what I heard, but using my own words. That way I can verify that what I understand is correct. Is that right? Yes, that is, right? Very good use of reflection. Okay, number 5, ask clarifying and probing questions. All right. Speakers don't know what you don't know, and so don't allow assumptions to direct what sort of information they share and to what degree. So here's the idea. They have the curse of knowledge. They have an understanding of what they're trying to communicate, but they may be communicating in such a way that requires you to have a certain level of understanding of the topic. if you don't have that understanding, then the way they communicate it may not help you. So ask questions. Don't let their assumptions drive how they convey the information. Probe, dig, poke, ask questions. Okay? So this means that in addition to reflecting back what you believe they said, ask questions to help raise the level of collaborative discourse. You want the level of understanding of the topic to be higher in level rather than them know everything and you down here kind of trying to muddle through what they're conveying. All right? So there you go. You now have a competitive advantage because you can listen more effectively than the average person. So go off, use it, be awesome, and until we talk again, have a fantastic day.